Shinglebank between Minster and Barton's Point on the Isle of Sheppey is another venue that I've been meaning to fish for a while, but I had never got round to doing it. A couple of days before this session, I did come and have a look at it, but there was no one fishing at the time. So when I arrived to fish it, some 2.5 hours before the top of the tide, I was quite surprised to find it already busy. I set up in the largest gap I could find between the other anglers and put out a 3-hook clip down rig with lugworm straight away. I hadn't even assembled my second rod when I got my first bite. It's mid-November, so there's no prizes for guessing what this might be. The 3-hook clip-down rig with 15-pound snuds and size 4 hooks is a great starting rig no matter where you go. Fishing at a distance, if there's anything about, you should get bites fairly early on and you're able to gauge the session accordingly. Yes, it's whiting and it's a double shot. I should catch these all day on that rig, so I know there's not much point in setting up another one which is identical. So for my second rod, I've gone for a 2-snud loop rig with a bottom snud being pennelled. Retainer hook is a size 6 chino style, but the other 2 hooks are 2.0 Aberdeens. I've initially baited up both snuds with double big lugworm, but I am able to change to something more substantial on the bottom snud if I need to. As I'm casting out, I'll run through the locational details. The swell separates Sheppey from the Kent mainland and other marks that I've been fishing recently. The Shinglebank is the eastern side of Barton's Point. Zooming in, you can see it's not that far from the beaches at Sheerness. Barton's Point is protected by a seawall with rock arm in front of it, but it's none of that along the Shinglebank, which is maintained by dumping and bulldozing gravel onto it. It's very compact and can drive the whole way along it from the car park to Barton's Point. The wind's from behind, so it's fairly easy to cast out a long distance. With 20-pound braid, a 100-yard cast in these conditions is fairly straightforward. When I got here, most other anglers were either near the car park or closer to Barton's Point, but by the time I cast out my second rod, all that ground in between was being filled up. Although it's getting more crowded, I've still got plenty of room between me and those either side. At this stage of the tide, I can get away with using plain leads, both 5 ounces, but a pyramid lead on the 3-hook clip down rig and a star lead on the other rig. It looks like this is going to be a busy session with bites from the off. I'm probably going to have to try different things to try and catch something other than the whiting. If I haven't heard of any big fish coming out, I'm not all that keen on just fishing big baits to avoid catching the whiting. Then again, I think it's a little bit too early for dabs, so I'm going to probably rule out using boom rigs. I'll just be adapting what I'm doing and fishing different distances to see if there are any other species around. I missed a bite, but before I recast I just check where my other line is. There is a bit more of a tidal pool now and I don't want to get them crossed. The fish seem to be snatching at the bait quite hard, but then letting go straight away. And I'm missing a few bites now. definitely missing more bites on the loop rig, but if there are any better fish about, this is a rig I think I'm more likely to catch them on. Time to try something different. As we're approaching the top of the tide, there's more water in front of me. If there are any flatfish about, this is the time when you can catch them quite close in. The same goes for bass. This will vary with venue, but in my experience, you're more likely to get bass close in just after high tide, as it's starting to ebb. Rigs with long snoods work well close in, so I'm setting up a Sheppey rig for the purpose. I am on Sheppey after all, so it'd be rude not to. When I fished Sheppey earlier in the year, I should really have tried these rigs, but I totally forgot about them. I carry the leads I'm likely to use for a session in my cool bag, so I'm searching for a small flat lead. EVA flat winders are quite useful for storing long snood rigs. This rig's got size 3 Nordic bend hooks on 10-pound red Maxima. The rig has 3 snoods and has been really working well for me on the Isle of Grain. I'll describe how I make these in one of my grain videos, and I'll attach a link to this here and in the description beneath this video. I don't often use baiting needles, preferring to thread the worms on by hand. Recently, where I've been digging my lugworm, there have been quite a few small white ragworm turning up, so I'm going to try these on the bottom snood. That's another whiting to the bottom snood of a loop rig. Two big lugworms to replace what the whiting has chewed. And I'll just add another lugworm to the top snood. I'm clipping down as usual to fish at distance, but I could quite easily use this rig as a 2-hook flapper if I didn't need to cast that far out. soon as I've cast that one out, I've got a bite on the other rod. Triple shot this time, and since I don't really want to be catching these all of the time, it's time to change this rig over to that Sheppey rig. Hopefully the whiting haven't moved in too close yet, because I've been dropping that Sheppey rig in close. Since the Sheppey rig has already been baited up, I'll attach that and cast it out before dealing with these whiting. Just a gentle lob to put it out about 25 yards or so. Quite a few of the whiting I've caught so far have been sizable, but they're all going back today. I've now added double small squid on the bottom snood of a loop rig. It's not going to put the whiting off, but I find it harder to swallow. You will of course get bites when they're just pecking at it, but if there are some big fish about, it might just buy me some time for one of those to find the bait. As mentioned before, I didn't really want to go down a route of just fishing big baits if I haven't heard of any big fish coming out, so this is a bit of a compromise. The baits on the Sheppey rig have come back mangled, but I think that's down to crabs rather than fish. Maybe I've cast that a little bit too close in, so the next cast will go 30 to 40 yards out. So far I've only had one little snatch bite close in, but I'll wind in and recast that. One of the worms has been taken, so it needs to be replaced. As soon as I recast that, I got another little snatch bite, but I managed to hit this one. Smaller than a whiting, but at least it's something different. A little scrawny bass. I'm using up my smaller bits of lugworm and a white rag in the hope of getting something like a flounder. It's now the top of the tide, so I'm lobbing it really short. Bite on the loop rig, but I don't think I've hit it. It's probably a whiting chewing at the squid. Just as I sit down, I get a better indication, but this time I have hit the bite. And it is a whiting that's managed to gorge itself on that double squid. The worm above that squid on that snood has gone, but the squid is intact, so I don't need to replace it. Having caught a little bass on the Sheppey rig, I was quite hopeful that at least that might sort out some different fish. But unfortunately, here comes the first whiting on that line. Time to try some sticky black lug. Things went a bit quiet, but then half an hour into the ebb, bites increased dramatically and the whiting were everywhere. A little bit of weed is now floating and getting attached to the line, but nothing to worry about. The loop rig with squid hasn't really worked, so I'm swapping that over to the 3-hook clip down rig. I'm getting a bit low on fresh out lugworm, so it's the sticky black stuff going onto the Sheppey rig. Nothing spectacular, but I'm pleased that that's something different. A pouting as well as a whiting. A lot of anglers are packing up and going now, but I quite often find that by staying late into the ebb, sometimes you can get rewarded by getting something different. Is this something different? No, it's a triple shot of whiting on the Sheppey rig. And a double shot of whiting on the clip down rig. It must be time to pack away. Another busy session with 35 whiting, a solitary bass and a solitary pouting. It might be a while before I come back here again, but next time I'll be hoping for either flatfish or, fingers crossed, a codling. I know they do show here, it's just a question of hitting it at the right time.